The office lights have already shifted to a softer tone, though the aircon hum is still steady above the cubicles. A phone rests near the edge of the desk, screen dark for a moment, as if even notifications have grown tired by the end of work. Outside the glass door, someone laughs briefly, then the sound thins into the hallway, leaving only the low breath of machines and the faint scent of paper that has been handled all day. There is a quiet pause before standing up, fingers brushing the smooth surface of the desk, eyes moving once more to the phone, almost out of habit. A small glance at the clock, just to be sure. The evening air outside the building feels slightly warmer than expected, carrying the last traces of traffic from the main road. The phone lights up again before it is even placed in a pocket, a soft glow that seems brighter now that the office has been left behind. There is a moment of standing still near the entrance, watching others step quickly toward their rides, while the steady aircon hum fades from memory and is replaced by distant engines and shoes against pavement. Work has ended, but the body does not immediately follow, still holding the shape of the chair, the weight of unfinished tabs somewhere in the mind. A thumb hovers over the screen, scrolling through messages without quite reading them, just moving as if movement itself might loosen the day. The ride home passes through familiar intersections where red lights gather cars into quiet lines. Inside the vehicle, the phone rests on a lap, screen bright in the dimming light, reflecting faintly on the window as buildings slide by. There is no urgency in the scrolling now, only a slow drift between headlines and group chats, each notification arriving like a small knock that does not need to be answered immediately. The air carries a thin layer of warmth from outside, and the memory of the aircon hum lingers in the ears, as if the body has not yet adjusted to the open evening. A glance at the clock on the dashboard, just once, before the light turns green. At home, the key turns with a soft click, and the door closes behind with a muted sound that feels almost private. The kitchen light is already on, casting a gentle circle over the counter where a few dishes wait quietly from the morning. The phone is placed beside the sink, its screen waking again as new notifications gather in small clusters, but for a moment it is left untouched. The room carries the faint scent of cooked rice and dish soap, and the refrigerator hum blends with the distant echo of traffic outside. Sleeves are rolled up slowly, hands moving under running water, while the mind loosens its grip on the tasks that no longer matter tonight. A small glance at the clock on the wall, just to notice how much the day has already passed. Dinner is simple, eaten standing near the counter, the kitchen light steady above. The phone remains within reach, lighting up occasionally, but the brightness feels softer now against the warm tones of the room. There is no rush to respond, messages can wait while the quiet rhythm of chewing and swallowing fills the space that work once occupied. The aircon hum from earlier has been replaced by the low refrigerator sound and the faint movement of curtains near the window. Plates are rinsed under running water, placed carefully to dry, and the counter is wiped with small, circular motions that feel almost automatic. A brief look at the clock again, not to measure productivity, only to register the hour. Later, sitting at the small table by the kitchen window, the phone is picked up once more. The scrolling is slower now, less restless, as if each movement of the thumb carries a little less urgency than before. Outside, the street has thinned, traffic passes in softer waves, and the evening air presses gently against the glass. The kitchen light remains on, a quiet companion that does not demand anything, only holding the room in its steady glow. The aircon hum from the office is far away now, replaced by this softer, domestic soundscape. A final glance at the clock, almost out of habit, before the phone is lowered slightly in the hand. The plates are stacked to dry, and the kitchen light stays on a little longer than necessary. The phone lies near the edge of the table, its screen occasionally brightening with new notifications that arrive without sound, only light. Outside the window, a few cars pass in steady intervals, their headlights sliding across the ceiling for a second before disappearing. The air feels still, almost held in place, as if the room is waiting for something small to settle. There is no clear reason to feel tired, yet the shoulders carry a quiet weight that does not fully belong to today alone. The aircon hum from the office has long faded, but a faint echo of it remains in memory, like a background note that has not quite dissolved. The phone is picked up again, thumb moving across the glass in slow arcs, not searching for anything specific. Messages from earlier in the day appear in neat rows, each one a small reminder of conversations that are already finished. A look at the clock above the stove, just once, to notice how the evening has moved forward without asking permission. The kitchen light casts a soft circle over the counter, highlighting the clean surface where dishes had been. It is a simple light, slightly warm, touching the edges of cabinets and leaving the corners dim. The phone screen glows cooler in contrast, a small rectangle of brightness that seems to carry the outside world into this quiet room. For a moment, the two lights overlap on the table, one steady and one flickering, neither asking to be chosen. The refrigerator hum continues its low rhythm, steady and predictable. Another glance at the clock, not hurried, simply acknowledging time as it passes. A chair is pulled out, and the body settles into it slowly. The weight of the day shows itself in small ways, a slight stiffness in the back, a longer exhale than usual, the need to sit without doing anything in particular. The phone remains in hand, yet the scrolling becomes more spaced out, with pauses between each movement. The screen brightens and dims in response to touch, as if mirroring the rise and fall of attention. Outside, the traffic has grown thinner, the sound softer and more distant. A brief look at the clock again, the numbers steady and unchanging in their quiet march. The kitchen light hums faintly, almost blending into silence. It is not a loud sound, just a small presence above, similar in tone to the aircon hum from earlier, but gentler. The room feels contained, defined by the edges of cabinets, the table, the window with its darkened reflection. In that reflection, the outline of a person sitting alone is visible for a moment, phone in hand, shoulders slightly rounded. The image does not ask to be interpreted, it simply exists. Another glance at the clock, a habit now, marking the slow rhythm of the evening. The phone lights up again with a new notification, the brightness briefly sharper against the dimmer surroundings. It is turned slightly away, not to avoid it, but to soften its glow against the eyes. There is no need to answer everything tonight. The kitchen light continues to hold its circle on the counter, steady and calm. The refrigerator hum, the faint sound of a car passing, and the quiet breathing in the room create a small, layered soundscape that feels familiar. A final look at the clock before setting the phone down lightly on the table. The kitchen light is turned off, and the room settles into a softer dimness. The phone is carried down the hallway, its screen lighting the path in a pale glow that feels cooler than the rest of the house. In the bedroom, a smaller lamp waits near the bed, casting a muted circle against the wall, just enough to outline the edge of a chair and the folded blanket resting on it. The air is still here, without the refrigerator hum, only the faint echo of distant traffic slipping through the window. Clothes are loosened and set aside, movement slower now, without the rhythm of work behind them. The phone rests on the bedside table, screen waking briefly with another notification before dimming again. There is no rush to reach for it. The lamp's light is warmer than the kitchen's, touching the sheets in a soft yellow tone that feels almost like a pause made visible. A small look at the clock on the wall, noticing how the numbers seem quieter at night. Sitting on the edge of the bed, the body leans forward slightly, elbows on knees. The air carries a faint trace of detergent from freshly washed fabric, a reminder of laundry folded earlier in the week. The phone is picked up, not to dive back into the day, but to glance through what has arrived since dinner. The screen glow reflects softly in the darkened window, where only a thin outline of the room can be seen. The outside world feels farther away here, reduced to a few scattered lights beyond the glass. A brief glance at the clock again, just once, before the screen is dimmed slightly. There is a different kind of quiet in this room. The aircon hum from the office belongs to another part of the day, and even the refrigerator's steady note does not reach this far. What remains is a thinner silence, stretched gently across the walls and ceiling. The phone vibrates faintly in the hand, a small pulse that breaks the stillness without shattering it. It is not an urgent sound, only a reminder that the day has not completely disappeared. A look at the clock, slower now, as if time itself has softened. The lamp casts a shadow of the hand against the wall when the phone is raised. Fingers scroll with less intention, pausing longer between each movement. Words on the screen seem less sharp, less demanding, as if they too have grown tired. There is space between notifications, small gaps where nothing happens at all. The thin silence of the room holds these gaps gently. Another glance at the clock, noticing the steady rhythm of minutes passing without announcement. The body lowers onto the bed, shoulders easing back against the pillow. The phone rests on the chest for a moment, its screen glowing upward into the dim room. The light feels almost like a small window, open and waiting, but it no longer pulls as strongly as it did earlier. The lamp continues to cast its warm circle, steady and contained. Outside, a car passes with a soft, distant sound that fades quickly into the night. One more look at the clock, simple and unadorned, before the phone is placed face up on the bedside table. The lamp remains on, but its light feels softer now against half-closed eyes. The phone lies within reach on the bedside table, screen dark for a few quiet seconds before waking again with a small notification. The air in the room is still, carrying a faint warmth that has settled into the sheets and pillow. Somewhere beyond the window, a car passes, its sound thinning quickly into the distance. Lying on the side, one hand stretches toward the phone without much thought. The screen glow spreads gently across the blanket, a pale rectangle in the dim yellow light. Messages continue to arrive in small clusters, not urgent, only persistent in their presence. The air no longer carries the steady aircon hum from earlier, instead, there is a thin silence that feels almost delicate. A slow glance at the clock on the wall, noticing the hour without measuring it against anything. Scrolling happens in shorter movements now. The thumb moves once, pauses, then rests. The words on the screen appear and disappear, each one held for only a brief second before giving way to the next. The lamp casts a steady circle of light that does not flicker, a quiet counterpoint to the shifting brightness of the phone. In this room, nothing asks to be completed. Another look at the clock, almost automatic, marking time in a way that feels less strict than during the day. The body shifts under the blanket, seeking a comfortable position. Fabric brushes lightly against the skin, carrying a faint scent of detergent that lingers from earlier washes. The phone vibrates softly in the hand, a small pulse that interrupts the thin silence without breaking it. There is no need to answer every message tonight, the notifications can remain as small dots on the screen. The lamp's glow touches the edges of the room, leaving the corners dim and undisturbed. A quiet glance at the clock again, simply to see where the night stands. Breathing grows a little slower. The phone's brightness feels stronger against tired eyes, and the thumb hesitates before scrolling further. The outside world, condensed into this small screen, seems less pressing when compared to the stillness of the room. The air carries no hum now, only the soft rhythm of breath and the distant trace of traffic that arrives and fades. Another brief look at the clock, the numbers steady and unchanged in their quiet progression. The lamp hums faintly, almost imperceptible. It is a sound so small that it blends into the thin silence, barely noticed unless attention lingers. The phone lights up again, but the movement to pick it up is slower this time, as if even the habit of checking has softened. The screen is held at a lower angle, reducing its glow against the darkened ceiling. A final glance at the clock, gentle and unhurried, before the phone is set down softly beside the bed and left untouched for a moment. The lamp is finally turned off, and the room shifts into a deeper shade of night. Only the faint light from the hallway filters in through the slightly open door, tracing a thin line across the floor. The phone screen glows again in the dark, brighter now without the lamp to soften it, casting a pale reflection on the ceiling. The air feels cooler against the skin, as if the room has quietly exhaled. Lying on the back, the phone is held above the face for a moment. The screen glow outlines the curve of the blanket and the edge of the pillow, turning familiar shapes into softer silhouettes. Notifications continue to appear, small icons lighting up in silence, their presence more visual than audible. The aircon hum from the office belongs to another world now. Here, there is only the faint movement of night air and the subtle shift of fabric with each breath. A slow glance at the clock on the wall, its numbers dim but steady. Scrolling feels heavier at this hour. The thumb moves once, then rests longer between gestures, as if each motion requires a small decision. Words blur slightly against tired eyes, and the brightness of the screen feels sharper than before. The room remains still, holding the quiet without comment. Outside, a distant vehicle passes, its sound softened by distance and walls. Another look at the clock, noticing how the minutes move without asking anything in return. The phone is lowered slightly, resting on the chest for a few breaths. The weight of it is light, yet noticeable, a small rectangle of warmth against fabric. In the darkness, the glow feels almost separate from the rest of the room, like a small window suspended in air. There is no urgency to answer, no need to react immediately. The thin silence stretches gently between each notification that appears. A brief glance at the clock again, almost out of habit. The body turns to one side, placing the phone on the mattress beside the pillow. The screen lights up once more, then dims, then lights again, as if unsure whether to stay awake. The hallway light continues to draw its narrow line across the floor, unchanged and quiet. The room feels smaller now, more contained, defined by the edges of the bed and the soft outline of the door. Another slow look at the clock, simply acknowledging that the night has deepened. There is a pause before reaching for the phone again. Fingers wrap around it gently, not with the earlier restlessness, but with a kind of quiet familiarity. The brightness is adjusted slightly lower, softening its glow against the dark. The ceiling above returns to shadow, and the shapes of the room settle back into calm outlines. One more glance at the clock, unhurried and simple, before the phone is placed face down on the bedside table and left there in the quiet. The phone remains face down on the bedside table, its screen hidden now, though its presence is still felt in the dark. The room has grown quieter, as if even the distant traffic has decided to rest. A thin line of light from the hallway stretches faintly across the floor, softer than before. The air carries a gentle coolness that settles against the skin. Lying still, there is a subtle awareness of the body against the mattress. The weight of the blanket feels steady, neither heavy nor light, just enough. The air no longer carries any hum from machines, only the faint rhythm of breathing that rises and falls without effort. The phone does not light up for a few moments, and the silence deepens slightly in its absence. A slow glance at the clock, noticing the hour without attaching anything to it. In the dark, small details become clearer. The outline of the doorframe, the soft curve of the chair in the corner, the shadow of folded clothes resting where they were left. The kitchen light from earlier is far away now, replaced by this dim, contained space. The day feels less defined here, its edges softened by the absence of movement. Another quiet look at the clock, simply registering that time continues in its calm way. Breathing slows a little more. The mind drifts briefly toward unfinished messages, then lets them pass without following. The phone stays still, its face turned down, not asking to be picked up again. The thin silence holds the room gently, without pressure. Outside, a car moves somewhere in the distance, but its sound fades before it fully forms. A brief glance at the clock once more, almost like a habit that no longer carries urgency. There is something small in this hour that feels enough. Not because everything is complete, and not because the day was perfect, but because the room is quiet and the body is here. The absence of the aircon hum, the steady glow of screens, and the layered sounds of the day make space for this simple stillness. The hallway light has dimmed further, leaving only a faint suggestion of its earlier line across the floor. Another slow look at the clock, not to measure, only to notice. The phone remains untouched. The blanket rises and falls with each breath, fabric brushing softly against skin. The darkness does not feel empty, it feels contained, like a small room within a larger world that has finally paused. There is no need to reach for anything else. One last glance at the clock in the dimness, gentle and unhurried, before letting the eyes close and allowing the night to continue on its own. The hallway light finally goes out, and the room becomes fully its own. The edges of furniture dissolve into shadow, leaving only the quiet outline of the bed and the slow rise of the blanket. The phone stays face down, its screen hidden, no longer sending pale light into the dark. There is nothing more to check tonight. The clock continues its steady movement, but its numbers feel less important now, simply part of the room like the door or the chair in the corner. The air rests lightly against the skin, cool and untroubled. Somewhere outside, a distant sound appears and fades before it can take shape. In this small stretch of night, everything has softened. Work, messages, the steady hum of machines, the bright pull of screens, all of it sits a little farther away. What remains is the simple weight of the body on the mattress and the quiet rhythm of breath moving in and out. The phone does not move. The clock continues. And the room, unchanged and still, holds the rest of the night without asking for anything more.